Alright, in this session we're going to talk about installing Joomla from scratch. We're going to go right through the process from beginning to end. Now in order to do this tutorial, in fact to do this entire course, you need to have one of two things. You need to have a local host set up where you can install Joomla and play with it, or you need to have somewhere on the web where you can do the same. In the beginner course, we talked about two important pieces of software. MAMP for the Mac and LAMP for Windows. If you haven't got those installed and you want to use your own machine to do this course, then head on over to the beginner course and take session 7 for your Mac or session 8 for the PC. And what this will do for you, it'll help you get MAMP set up on your Mac or LAMP set up on your PC for a local host environment. The other way to do this, of course, is to just have a website out there somewhere on the web that you have control over that you can install Joomla on and play with. For this session, we're going to be using MAMP and installing on our local host machine. Alright, so let's get started. The first thing we need to do today is download Joomla. Joomla is best downloaded from joomla.org. It's always the latest version, and you get to read some of the announcements, community news, and things that are going on. When you come to joomla.org, there are two places to go. Right here, nice big icon, or here. Either one will take you to the same place. When you're downloading Joomla, it's always good to download the most current version. Joomla is updated usually when there are security updates to worry about or new features that are announced. One thing I highly recommend if you're going to use Joomla at all is that you enter your email address to get the automatic security updates. Really critical. Now, most of the security issues you ever hear about Joomla are related to extensions and not the core. But this is a great place to start when you're talking about securing your website. I will say this, Joomla sometimes is maligned for the number of security issues that pop up. Let me just say a couple of things about that on the onset. One, it's the most popular CMS in the world, so it gets the most attention from hackers and evildoers. Secondly, more often than not, in fact 99% of the time, problems in Joomla occur with bad extensions. In the beginner course, in the last session, we talked about security, but let me just highlight a couple of those things. You should always check your extensions that you're downloading for other people who've used them and make sure that they are highly rated in the extensions directory. Number two, you should check and make sure that none of those extensions have any vulnerabilities that have popped up. Number three, always keep your extensions up to date, just like you keep your Joomla site up to date. Doing those three things will keep your site safe, although nothing is 100% guaranteed. For instance, if you use your pet's name as your administrative password, that's not real smart. So just make sure you're following the basic security principles for any website, and you should be fine. So alright, let's download Joomla. We grab the 1.5.18 full package, which is the current version today, and of course you can just save that file to your downloads directory. Now I'm going to use my FTP program to do all of the file and directory manipulation, and there's good reason for that. Sometimes your Finder or Explorer, depending on what platform you're on, may not create the files with the correct permissions. It may not create the files with the right extensions. Using your FTP program will nullify all of those things because you should have it set up. Directories are always set at 755. And files at 644, unless you're instructed otherwise by a particular component or other extension. Alright, so here's my Joomla 1.5.18 stable. All I have to do now is unzip this file. Of course, it's going to unzip it to the current directory and create a new folder called Joomla_115 blah 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 blah. That's really hard to work with when you're trying to do your editing and working with a new website. So let's just rename that directory. Call it int for intermediate. Not a big deal. We haven't set Joomla up yet, so doing that is perfectly acceptable. Now that we've renamed the directory and unzipped the files, we're ready to install Joomla. And by now this should be pretty familiar to you, so we'll go through rather quickly. First screen, choose our language. Next screen, just double check that everything's green. Again, if you're working on a local host, that's not such a big deal. If you're working on a live host somewhere and any of these are in the red, then you should go back to your host and make sure that those are updated properly, especially safe mode and register globals. Those should both definitely be in the green. The licensing information. Now we come to our database. If you haven't set up a database yet for your localhost installation, that's okay. We'll just go over to our MAMP localhost phpMyAdmin and create a new database. I usually create databases with the same name of the folder or the site that I'm doing, just so I can keep track later on. That's now created. Simple as that. The host name is localhost. Now again, this might change depending on the hosting service you're using. You'll want to check on the information they give you when you set up your database. In this case, it's root and int. Great, no errors there, so we're ready to go. You can leave that off. We'll call this OS Training Intermediate course. My email, we'll use a secure password even though this is a local host environment. It's a good thing to do just so you can stay in the practice. And we'll install the sample data. All right, we get our familiar message that the site has been installed. Now we have to make sure we go back over and remove that installation directory. And to do that, we just come back over here and delete this directory. Or you can rename it. On a localhost environment, where you might want to do it over and over again, you might just want to rename that, and that's all you need to do. But in a live environment, strongly encourage you to actually delete that folder. So now we can go over to our site, and we have the standard Joomla installation ready to go. In the next session, we're going to talk about all the files and folders. This should have been review for most of you. If this wasn't review, I'd encourage you to go through the tutorial maybe a little more slowly, or go back to the beginner class session 3 and 4 to just double check how to do that.